is now 5:32 p.m. and I convene the June 2nd, 2022 LLD Personal Policy Committee meeting to order. Chris, please call the roll.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Jenny Norton.
Here.
Emily Swistad.
Here.
Sarah Wynn.
Here.
Tatiana Weinstein.
Here.
Beth McQuillan.
Here.
Thank you. Item agenda number 2 is opportunity for visitors to speak. General public comment period. Public comment is for the general public to address the board. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide public comment. Seeing as we have no visitors, we can move on to item number 3, approve minutes of the April 7th, 2022 Personal and Policy Committee meeting. May I have a motion and a second?
I motion to, I'm sorry,
Would you
to
like-
approve. I'm sorry.
I'll second without the sorry. I am so sorry.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I have a question,
Mhm.
and I know that we don't want to make the minutes real lengthy, but when people ask a question, or trustees ask a question, do we go into, can we supply the answers, or if there might be follow-up action? I'm referring to my question, and it's not just about me, it's whenever anyone does.
Okay.
I asked if we had a grievance policy,
Mhm.
so that's all it says. I'm trying to find it. I did read the minutes twice.
I think, unless it was left out, I remember, because we read it between Chris writing
Oh,
it
it's-
and Beth.
I'm
then-
sorry.
It's in the first paragraph.
I think it said that.
Oh, yeah. It says, President Bartelli agreed. She asked if there was a process for staff to file a grievance. Chairwoman Swistek affirmed that the library has grievance procedures.
Oh,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Never mind, I must be thinking of other minutes.
But we did
Okay.
talk about, like, we were gonna, at a later date.
No,
we were
no,
gonna look at
and
those
this is fine,
policies.
this is fine,
Okay.
okay.
I think if there's ever any, sometimes questions get asked and there's never a, sometimes there's not a direct answer at the time of the meeting.
Mhm.
And so that the minutes just really reflect what was asked at the meeting. And if there is follow-up, like via email or whatever, those wouldn't go into the minutes because this is what happened at the meeting.
Right, exactly.
So,
Oh, okay.
Okay, got it,
I mean, maybe that's what
yes,
we're thinking about.
thank you.
Any other discussion points on the minutes?
No?
Okay. Roll call, please, Chris?
Sarah Wynn.
Aye.
Jenny Norton.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye,
Emily Swistad.
Aye. Oh, motion passes. Sorry.
I never say that, I just figure it did, so.
Okay, item agenda 4 is director evaluation, draft review / discussion. Okay, so in your packet, you can see a draft that I put together. I typed it up based on some of the examples that we had looked at our previous meeting. You probably recognize the format was very similar to that one that we seemed to really like, but I tried to pull some of the comments that all three committee, or the other 3 committee members had set about the rating scale, about different bullet points and things like that. Some of them I just took directly from that example that we'd had. Others I pulled in things that other people had suggested. But I really wanted to discuss it now through this because we're just focusing on this draft as opposed to at our last meeting when we had multiple examples and we were trying to hone it down to one, and so I put it together. But if we can start at the first page of this, that would really help me to kind of go through, and I can talk you through kind of what I was looking at and what I was going for with this. If I can kind of go through it with you like that, and then we can go back and kind of talk about it. Okay,
Sure.
so at the top of it, you see I've got the director name, evaluation period, evaluator, then parentheses board member name, because we talked about having each board member complete this themselves. So if you look at the form instructions, where I have that in there, they completed individually. what they can refer back to as they're completing this document. And then in number 3, return the completed form to blank by blank to be referenced during the executive session discussion on blank. Because I figured, I mean, the date clearly will be fluid every year, but I didn't know if we wanted to have like a designee that it's gonna get returned to. So is it gonna get returned to a specific office holder? Is it gonna get returned to the chair of the personnel policy committee because we're the ones who created this document? Like who do we want that to go to? Or do we want it to go to anyone? So like, or do we want it to be, you just bring it to this meeting and then we discuss it together, right? So like that's the conversation I wanna have at this point is, do we want this to be completed in advance, submitted to one person, one board member, and then we discuss it at another meeting, at the executive session meeting with the whole board? Or do we want just everyone to bring theirs and not submit it in advance? And then discuss it?
I have an opinion.
Yep.
Sorry, Marjorie. I think that because in the executive session, the president generally leads the session, and that's the session in which we discuss the evaluation, it makes sense to have each individual trustee funnel their responses to the president so that the president has it in advance in order to lead that
That's what I was
session.
gonna ask you, if you're thinking about it being in advance of the meeting. So can we do that part first, if we think it should be submitted in advance of the meeting? And then go from
And then
there?
the who,
Yeah,
if so.
okay,
Well, you know my answer to that.
yes, we got your answer. Sarah, what do you think?
I don't know, just because of how much time is it gonna take. I think that's the thing that I'm thinking of, is like, if we all come together, is it gonna just be like pulling out like 2-3 hours? Since I haven't been through this, I feel like it could be a lot for one person, but I know that person, that's their position. I'm at the moment, I like, but I don't know.
Well, and I think, and the
And
only,
that's okay. I'm
yeah, go
sorry.
ahead, Marjorie,
No,
go ahead.
that's okay, I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cause like I
no,
see,
it's okay, that's why we're discussing this.
yeah, cause I see good things and bad things about both. I think I really like the group idea because that gets everybody talking. And then at the same time, everybody's talking. And then it's like, if it's for one person, like, it's just that one person that sees everything, and people don't see where others are. So I'm just kind of in the middle at the moment. I don't know.
Okay, Marjorie, what are you thinking?
I'm like Sarah, what I'm not understanding about that, so, I'm okay with it going to one person.
Okay.
And whomever we decide is fine. I would think we'd need 2 executive sessions because initially, and my second question, let me ask that first, because
Okay.
that might answer my first question. So if we have one executive session and we distribute this and we all talk about our ratings, are we going to do a cumulative score based on all 7? Because, I mean, we'll never arrive at
So,
a meets, exceeds.
right. Well, and do you remember what and Sarah, you weren't here for this, but Jenny was, when we did the architects, and then Marjorie and I were there when we selected the contractors, and it was the same thing that we did with the architects, where we gave our input, and we each kind of shared our rating in the different categories or whatever, and then we discussed, and we maybe changed our opinions on some things, or, it was very like open discussion. And then at the end, made the decision kind of based on everyone's input together. And so what I was kind of envisioning was really this whole return the completed form to someone by a specific date is to me, it was just kind of like it would just be nice, because then we know it's submitted, it's completed before the meeting, that when we discuss it. So it's not necessarily like that, like, let's say it went to the board president. It's not saying, Marjorie, you need to read through these and you need to do all that stuff yourself in advance. It's just, no, they've been submitted, and now we're ready to discuss at the meeting. As opposed to walking into that meeting and being like, oh, yeah, wait, I didn't do it, let me try to do it now. So that kind of just so that that mindset is already set, we're ready to discuss it at that meeting, was my thoughts, which is kind of like both combined, I guess.
Well, that's a good point as far as it needs to be sent in by a certain date.
Right.
There's
like
no, you
completed in
you
advance of the
can't,
meeting.
you can't do it on the spot.
I think it would be too hard to wing it.
Exactly, exactly.
So, I don't know, Jenny, what are you,
Even though
I
I
see the way you're
apologized
looking
to
at me.
Marjorie, I think I apologized to her because I was electing her to be the person to receive it, but really it's also a favor to Marjorie in the sense that she is the leader of that session, and I think her having that in advance gives her information to help guide her on how to conduct that session. It will help, because we're not gonna have a third-party consultants like we've had with these other examples to collate the data and whatever, and I think it would just set it up to be a lot more efficient if that leader of the conversation already has the data, already knows maybe from that the right way to start asking the questions for the group to discuss.
and just a general idea, because again, like, our discussion will be fluid, right? So like, you may have said, put one thing down, Jenny, you may have said that exceeds, and I think, oh no, that does not meet, and then in the discussion, we're like, oh no, you know what, listening to what you're saying, Jenny, about the reason why you picked that, you know what, I agree with you now, and kind of adjusting it, so I feel like that would help. So maybe, then generally speaking, we can just say completed form to the president, right, of the Board of Trustees, and then, I don't know, 48 hours in advance of the executive session, or whatever it is. I don't know what you guys think, but just kind of for me to just have a little thing to jot in here right now.
I'm good with that.
Do we think that's okay? Because again, this is gonna end up going to the full board that has to agree with it anyway. So I'm just gonna put 48 hours prior, whatever the executive session is, and then we'll figure that out later, right?
Okay,
And I think I heard it a different way. So
Okay.
now that you explained it and then you asked, I was like, oh, I see where I was understanding it one way and not the other. So yes, I completely agree
Okay.
with submitting it, the 48 hours to, yes, I do.
Okay. And so
So-
that's there, and then,
well, then we could logically, during our discussion, do the ratings that you're talking about as it's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably even better to do it that way, like we did for the construction manager.
yeah. So that as we're discussing it, then we'll just be able to just share. And so now if we look through, and we start in the part one, core job competencies, and you'll see the rating scale, you all said 3 max, so that's why there's 3, well, then there's the unable to evaluate or not applicable. I don't know what you want that one to say, or if you're fine with unable to evaluate. I looked at some different examples to put that one in there, but you all said 3, so then I was like, okay, 3.
You want it or not?
I don't know what it is.
It's another binder clip. Do you remember what I said?
Sure, thanks. Delivery.
Cover my
Speedy
face.
delivery.
We were stuck, as a matter of fact, without that
Sorry.
binder
Thanks.
clip.
There you go.
Oh,
I don't know
that's
if
a
it's
good
important or not.
Well, this is a good one, thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry.
It's okay.
Now we can proceed.
Okay, so are we good with the exceeds, meets, does not meet? And then thoughts on unable to evaluate, or if it should be non-applicable, or, what were some of the other examples?
Not observed.
Not observed. Let's see, there was another one in
Yeah.
there that I remember thinking, oh, that's an interesting one.
I have the packet from last meeting, so I think it's, well, would it, and I'm not suggesting this, I'm just going through the old packet.
Yeah,
Would we not even consider needs improvement? How would we be able to,
so.
from a, I mean, I don't think I'd be qualified to say someone, unless it's it could be in the interpersonal part, and I don't think that would ever happen. That's
Okay.
not what I'm suggesting. But that was one of them, and I'm also not suggesting that we include that.
Oh,
And where-
right, because it said, instead of it saying does not meet, it was room for improvement.
Room for improvement.
To me, that means the same thing. It's not meeting. You know, it's
Okay.
maybe phrased nicer to say
Room for
room
improvement.
for improvement, but I think
And
it,
I would, if we would consider using that, I think room for improvement rather than
as
needs
the-
improvement.
where the
Yeah,
one
I-
is.
That's not a
Oh.
nice, okay.
We want
where
it
is
to be
more?
gentler.
There was another.
Yep, I'm paging through these real quick.
Oh, there's a no opportunity to observe. Is that another one?
Performance needs attention? Don't know. I'm just reading these though.
Yeah. And then there was one that had unknown. It had excellent, satisfactory, needs improvement, and unknown. So I don't know. I don't know how we feel about the word choices. Do we want it to be just short and succinct? Do we want it to be?
I'm not too
Kinder.
picky here. If Marjorie wants to change the one wording to be gentler, I'm amenable to that. Unable to evaluate, not observed, or other similar is all good to me. We are gonna bring this to the full board and they'll
Right.
have a chance to pick it further there.
Should I, like, in the draft that goes to the full board, should I have other options in there? Or do you wanna just leave it as unable to evaluate, or do you wanna leave it as
If you
one
just,
of the other ones?
yeah, I mean, you could put a little, bracket somewhere
Yeah.
right underneath and
Okay,
say, we
so-
also considered these other
Not,
Right, I
things.
think
not
that's-
observed, what did we say, not observed,
Unknown.
unknown? Okay. And then for does not meet, we said, what was the other option, Marjorie, what did you say?
Room
Room for
Room for
improvement.
improvement.
Might have to go with smaller font size at that point, but there it is.
Well, it's good that the other board members know that we talked about those
Yeah,
options.
yeah,
rather than
and so I can put that in there then in that draft, when I edit the draft, I can put that in there.
just- Sure.
And then that'll be lead part of that discussion. Okay, are we good? We move on to the next, Jenny.
While we're on the first page.
Yep.
Spelling of the word competencies. N, extra N. Unless I'm spelling it wrong.
Oh, competencies. Yeah, competencies, thank you.
Oh.
I was typing in all caps and I realized as I was typing that I don't type on a keyboard all that often anymore. It's always on my phone, and so I can thumb type, but real typing? Okay. So then in one, library board relations, again, this was just, I pulled this from one of the other evaluations that we had looked at a previous meeting. I don't know how we feel about these, if there's anything that we think is missing here. If you think it should be library-board relations, like I don't know. Or if it's just library, I don't know. So, thoughts?
I think these are good.
I think that's,
I certainly wouldn't add any there.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
wouldn't.
already we have 5 and that, that's enough.
Okay. Jenny?
just skirting up slightly above library board relations, could I, propose a replacement maybe for the word perception? Best
Okay.
indicates your perception of the
Okay.
director's performance. I wasn't totally feeling perception
Okay.
in my heart. I feel assessment is closer to what I'm,
Okay.
because perception, how you perceive things,
Yep.
seems a little more floaty.
Yep.
Assessment seems a little more firm
Sounds good.
and, all right.
Sarah, you go with that?
Mhm.
Marjorie?
Mhm.
Okay. So we're, oh, and I was gonna talk to you about this too. So this is how the tables are for all of them. So on the right, it says rating, and then there's boxes next to each one of those bullet points. Because we talked at our last meeting about being able to rate the individual bullet points if we wanted to, and then giving that overall section a rating, right? So we kind of said, however, when we discuss it with a full board though, the overall rating for that section is what's gonna matter.
Right.
So it's really, for each individual trustee, what's gonna work better for them. Do they want to rate each one of these separately, then give them an overall rating? Or if they wanna just do an overall rating, whatever. But the overall rating is the one that's gonna be on the board.
Right.
Marjorie, when you're leading it,
Right.
like that,
Mhm.
it would just be the overall rating for one. As opposed to getting into all the weeds
Yes.
and doing each one.
I remember that from our previous conversation. I continue to endorse it completely. I would maybe then suggest make that a number 4 under form instructions so that that carries through to future board
Okay.
groups that we're saying something to that effect, that, you know, the bulleted list is for the individual trustees' use, and the overall rating is what will ultimately be presented to in the meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna make that a 3, and then the return, the
Oh, yeah,
4.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just put something together for that, and then we can discuss it at the next one. Okay. All right, so we're good? All right, next. So 2 was policy and general information. Comments, questions, concerns, additions as necessary for this one? Anything that we're thinking?
I love the consistency and the capitalization of board and other, like the just calling out that there's good consistency in the uses of capital letters here, and so I'm not critiquing, I'm just complimenting, I guess.
Thanks, I was trying to be uniform, you know how I get,
Mhm.
especially with the Oxford count. So we're good on 2? All right, let's look at 3, financial administration. If there's a different title for this too, tell me if there's something else that you think would be better for it, as far as this goes. Because I know that Jenny had different suggestions for some of the different categories. And so maybe once we get through all of it, we can go back and say, is there anything that's missing? What do we need to do here? So in the financial administration, concerns, questions, suggestions?
Well, isn't the very last one, well, no, I guess not, capital expenditures? That's almost like our budget, isn't it? I mean, I know that's an annual process, we set the budget, but,
I was thinking that's more like the large amounts.
okay.
And now I'm realizing that in the second bullet point, I didn't capitalize the L in library, Jenny.
Oh, my
Well, we were on 2 when I was
Oh,
complimenting.
gee.
If the director, assistant director have any comments or anything while we're going through this, that would help as well.
Which sure would.
Well, capital projects is like a term, and that would be the larger expenditures.
Okay,
So-
But I don't know if President Bartolet is referring to that the board actually, you could say, I mean, the board would be developing, you could say that the director administers, like the board directed capital project expenditures or something like that.
well, as I reread it though, the director does do the planning for it. I mean, as far as suggestions as to what's needed, so I think that's good as it is. It
Because
just
we
kind of
discuss it
jumped,
and then
yeah.
Okay.
I do like the word projects over expenditures in this case.
What?
You like projects over
I know, I'm
expenditures?
so sorry.
No, I can't hear you.
What?
Yeah, talk in my good ear.
That was a very objectionable tone, though, to that what? No, it was projects. I concur with the director's
Okay,
recommendation, suggestion for projects over expenditures.
Sarah, what do you think?
Sure. I mean, expenditures is more accounting ease, but just because I'm an accountant doesn't mean it makes more sense there.
Okay? Okay?
mhm,
All right, 4. Now you can see here, I was trying to copy include 2 different things.
sure.
Community and public relations, and then in parentheses I put advocacy, outreach, and awareness, because I was trying to figure out how they kind of fit together, and I felt like they did, but I wasn't sure what we wanted to title this section, or if this worked, or what. So, I gotta tell you though, that this first bullet point is, again, it's one I took from another example, and I had to read it like 3 times to make sure I was pronouncing the words the correct way, based on what they are, because appearance, speech, and conduct present an appropriate image of the library, because I kept thinking, is it conduct, is it conduct, is it present, is it present? So I was struggling with that, and I don't know if I was the only one struggling with that when I read it, or if that was something else that other people felt. And if other people did feel that same thing too, is there maybe something else that we can, some other way we could word it so that we don't get stuck on if it's conduct or conduct and present or present? Is it just me? If it's just me, I'm totally
No,
fine and everyone's good.
It was, I couldn't get past present, because it was like, I was like,
How
wait,
about-
what? And so, yeah, I was the same way, but I was trying to figure out what else, like, you would probably have to like scrap the whole thing, that sense, but just kind of rework it. I don't know.
If you added, this may not be the right word, but
Uh-huh.
begin it with by appearance, speech, and conduct, present and appropriate. That may not be the right, but I think it explains your difficulty with conduct
With,
or
yeah.
conduct.
Well, most of the other ones starts with verbs. I don't know if just
Okay.
flipping the order goes, and so it says presents an appropriate image of the library through appearance, speech, and conduct, something like, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, that was nice.
that helps. So if we say presents an appropriate image of the library, did you say through or
Through
via? What
appearance.
did you say?
Whatever you like to share, woman, but I think I said through, just
Through?
as a starter.
I think through would be better.
Okay, so through appearance, speech, and conduct. Well, that helps.
Just a little cut
Thanks,
paste.
because now I'm not gonna think it's conduct and presence. Okay. All right, so then this continues on to the next page because I wasn't super worried about page breaks when I was typing this, because I knew we were gonna be messing around with it, so. Okay. Thoughts on the other ones? I added in Friends of the Public Library and the Lisle Library District Foundation. Are
And
those the
that-
correct titles?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good you took Algonquin out of there.
So, any other things that we think need to be added here, stricken, adjusted? Jenny, you look like you have thoughts.
It was just to say, your earlier comment about the length of the title of 4 doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't appear like an unnatural smushing of all related things that you wanted to capture in one topic.
And my question with that then was, do we want to be one or the other? Or are you okay with it being the one and then the parentheses? Like, it was really just,
Good
I was
enough.
trying
I
to
think
throw
it's
me out
clear. I think it has all the words that we want it to have.
there. Okay.
Could it be slightly better? Maybe somebody could figure it out, but I think it's serviceable.
And again, like, it'll go to the whole board and they can tell us things too, right? Okay, so then 5, okay, I don't know if I was grasping here or not, but I put personnel administration and staff relations, and then I put organizational culture and growth. There was an example that I saw that had, one thing was organizational culture, and another was organizational growth, and then I was like, wait, can these go together? Do they have to be separate? Do we need to have those words in there? But that relates to our strategic plan. How do we want to do this? And so I wanted to discuss it with all of you.
Same comment. It's a lot of words, but I think that it's all part of the same relevant topic, the HR hat that the
Okay.
director wears, and it works for me.
So I threw in
The last two.
the last two.
I was going to ask you.
I threw those ones in because I had pulled them from another example. And that's and that was more with the organizational like growth kind of thing it was talking about. And so I wasn't sure, did those fit there? Should they be someplace else? But I didn't wanna not involve them, like not include them somewhere in here. And so I didn't know if there was another place they could go.
Let me ask you, may I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Those 2 points, would that, and I don't know this, so I'm asking, wouldn't your staff, Tatiana, excuse me, wouldn't they be creating new services and programs or suggesting, and wouldn't they also have input in the collection that it remains responsive?
Yeah, they do, I mean, and they do the programming and they do
Right.
everything, but generally, if there's something new that happens in the library, it does have to go filter through to make sure that it meets our mission,
Okay.
meets the goals of the library, And so I review basically anything that's new that's being initiated.
Okay.
So now, that I'm gonna ask you, Tatiana, do you think that these two fit under this category, or do you think that they would be better in a different spot, just based on your expertise of what your job is?
I don't think it's horrible here, but maybe under strategic and community planning.
Second.
Wow, look at that. Okay.
Yep, in fact, you already have duplicative collection is responsive to changes in the community.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
So you already.
I already had it there and I
seconded it.
didn't move it, or I put it there and I put it in 2 places. Okay. So then, do we feel good about moving those 2 then to 7, and clearly I already had one of them in 7, so.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll move those 2. Anything else you think that needs to go into this 5?
I'm hesitating, because I know.
I hear you hesitating.
I know. I knew you would have seen me hesitating if I hadn't called myself out. Called myself out. I'm just thinking about this is the HR category. This is where we get into that murky territory of the 360 concept, which I know we talked about and I know we shelved, and that's okay. But I just feel like my thought that I'm pushing out, because I don't have a specific idea in mind, is, do we have something in the HR category that, in these bullet points, that satisfies, how do we know that the health of staff morale, things like that, how do we know that that's
So
being
that
addressed?
one above the little line where we're gonna cut it now, that encourages and maintains a stimulating work environment that fosters trust, teamwork,
And the word
open
morale is
communication,
in it.
professional growth, and positive staff morale.
Okay,
So you're saying, how are we gonna,
I guess, yeah, I mean, if what my gut feel is encapsulated in that bullet point, then I think we're thumbs up there. But I was just thinking about it, like, that we know that we as a board are thinking, with our limited ability to assess how relations are between the director and the staff and how things are healthy in a workplace culture way, how we have a place to bullet point that.
okay. So, and again, we said we would talk about that kind of staff input at a later time, because we're trying to get this developed quickly. So I assure you that we will talk about that at a later date, and about how, if there's a way that we can incorporate some kind of staff feedback into it, and we'll figure that out, I think, as we go along, but based on, the research that I've done so far, and that I've gleaned from discussions with the directors, that there's no other governmental organization in our community that uses a 360 review, no other libraries that are using it with the director.
Can I-
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I don't know any other library directors, and I'm on a kind of a circuit of other libraries that have a 360. However, I can sympathize with boards because they're not there every day, and part of the director's job is to keep morale up and things like that. So in conversations with other directors over the years, when they come into this kind of situation and being evaluated, and how does the board even tell? Generally, it's board visits to the library and kind of getting a feel, but not only that, but also the supplements in the quarterly reports, and those should be, you might be able to glean, especially for professional development and things like that. Most of the department directors do list, things that they've encouraged their staff to do and things that I've encouraged them to go to and things like that. So it's hard, I know, and like I said, I can sympathize because you're not there every day, but those are the 2 things, is visits and reading the quarterlies. And if the board would want more supplied in board packets from the department directors, we can also implement that.
Okay,
So that's just a couple of
Okay.
ways to assess that.
thank you.
I think I just needed to read that bullet point for the
Okay.
8th or 9th time to really kind of feel like,
I
as
know
long
it
as
was a lot,
everyone,
Jenny, I'm
I don't know if every trustee every year is gonna read that 8 times and then
Right.
finally feel like, aha, this is my moment where I need to feel the pulse of the staff.
Right, right.
And decide, has the workplace culture been cultivated in the way
Right.
that I think is healthy for
Yeah.
this organization, so
Okay.
that's, but it's there.
Okay, thank you. All right, so 6, legislative and legal, which goes on to the next page. Anything?
You're just missing an N in council in the
Oh,
last
oh,
bullet
yeah, I
point.
see it, just jumped out at me. All right, thank you.
I don't know what else to add to that, or.
Oh, I never mentioned this, the comment section on the, on those, when I was talking about it on the first page, the comments was just if anyone wanted to write any specific comments.
Mhm.
Or it could even be just questions that they want to discuss when we go to executive session, you know, based on that, for each section. Jenny, you
Now
wanna
that you
say
brought
something?
that up, now don't want to make you regret bringing it up, because what that triggers in me is, as a matter of public record, things like that, you know, now comments feels like anything I'm writing down could be brought up
But it's personal
again.
record, so
Right,
it's not,
so-
and it's only an executive session.
Yes, I know, but you know, in a non-library environment, in a corporate environment, those comments, all of that stuff is part of the HR record. So I almost think the word comments
But it's still,
is, I was gonna say, I just think the word comments makes me feel like that's part of your
evaluation.
decision and your evaluation, and if it was instead something like notes,
Oh,
then it feels more like personal notes that you're only
Okay.
taking for your own edification,
Okay.
for the purposes of discussion, and not part of a permanent record that is there
Do you like that?
immortalized.
Do you want to change it to notes?
It is still an official personnel document, so just FYI.
Okay.
That'll be kept on premises.
So somewhere I'll need to add that on there, right?
Yes.
So document will become, what is it, part of the official,
It's an official personnel document.
so this is part of the, what did it say that, I'm sorry,
It's an
Is-
official personnel document.
is and
Right, it would not
official
be foyable, but it would,
personnel
It would-
document.
It would not, or it would?
It would not, I will say there's a caveat, if there, and I'm speaking objectively,
Yeah,
if there's ever a legal issue, hiring HR issue down the line, that this record would need to be pulled out because there was a dispute or something like that.
then it
part of
would
a
be.
rare exception.
Yes, very well.
Okay, so this
Well-
document is an official personnel document,
You could say an official personnel record that will be kept on premises in a, you know, a fireproof case, lock case. I mean, we have it in
the,
personnel records, file cabinets.
On the other side of that, if for whatever reason a director was going to be severed, the director could also use the notes. Let's just say, for an example, a note said something derogatory or negative about the director. And then the director was either fired for a cause or just because. So when you say it's foyable, in defense of the director, if she wanted to use comments from the notes, we just got rid of comments in our museum. Do I make any sense?
It's not foyable because it's a personnel record, but if there's a legal dispute, and this is, I'm not speaking as a legal expert.
Right, right.
But if there's a legal dispute where there's, you know, something like you mentioned, the record would become, you know, probably accessible to both parties.
I'm just asking, it's not that I'm afraid of anything or anticipating anything, but in this day and age, people use whatever.
so we just need to make sure that whatever we're
We
writing in
understand,
here,
right,
we're, even though it is confidential, it's not something that we would be uncomfortable with being out there. Right, kinda like whatever you post on social media, you can just imagine that anyone in the world sees it.
sure,
It's very similar to emails, like official emails from your
true,
library account.
that's true. Mhm. Okay,
Jenny, you look like you have thoughts.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to mince, but I'm curious. Is what is considered part of the permanent personnel record, what is submitted to the president that we're talking about, that, or like say, for example, what is sitting in front of me at this moment where I'm scribbling here? We're not gonna turn in all our scribbles, or are we expected to turn in all our scribbles from the day of?
So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I think back to the procedures that we went through when we hired the architect and when we hired the construction, the only things that we had to submit were our ratings.
Correct, and that
We
was
did not have to
electronically,
submit
it
our
was
notes.
ratings, not notes, correct. That's correct.
So, with that in mind, maybe we should have a separate document that is just our ratings for the categories that gets submitted, and then our notes, our own personal notes.
Almost like a single first page here and then
Yeah.
everything else behind, and it's
Mhm.
only the first page that gets submitted.
Mhm.
And then everything else is notes
I
that
have
get,
no idea.
What's the concern? Is the concern that you're talking about like having an official document?
yeah, I think so. I'm not thinking of any scenario that I'm aware of that has come up. I'm thinking of worst case scenarios.
Sure, yes. So you could always just keep things the way they are, and just not have comments or notes. And then each board member could have their own piece of paper that are their own, that are, I would call them preliminary or preliminary notes.
Mhm.
And that way, it's not a foilable document, it's not an official document, it's your own preliminary notes on this topic. And then just have your form and your ratings and your overalls.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then we would
Makes
just get rid of this comments, notes sections on the bottom of all of these.
Yep.
And then we could just say,
Feel free to bring.
feel free to bring your own notes to the
Right.
discussion. But then this is what's getting submitted to the president,
Mhm.
and then we just scrap this,
That's a clean way of handling it.
okay? All right,
Not
That's good.
everybody's mother was my mother and said, don't put anything down in writing you don't want repeated.
well, that's what I was saying about like social media, right?
That's a big
Anything you put out there regardless, like it can be, okay. All right, so legislative and legal, that's where we stopped, that's where we just went off into that tangent. Did we have anything else with that? I think we got into legislative and legal and then started thinking about
Mhm.
the
Yeah, it was a
the
trigger.
document.
It was.
Okay, so then 7 is strategic and community planning. Anything? And you know, and here's the thing too, so some of these, depending on the year, will be an NA, because like when we're in the process of creating a strategic plan, well then clearly we're gonna be able to rate on that. But then when it's like the second bullet point, well, that's not gonna be applicable every year, and so that would be an NA sometimes, right? So I think, you know,
Mhm.
I think that's okay.
That's why we have NA as a possibility, right?
Mhm.
Well, it does say implementation of the strategic plan, so
Mhm.
that's ongoing.
Yep, that is ongoing. Oh, yeah, you're right. But now again, the collection is responsive to change in the community is also feels kind of, I don't know, do we feel like it fits there or no? I mean, we said we were gonna leave that there, and then the creativity initiative or demonstrating creating new services and programs. Like, are we good with those both being over there still? Or does it feel funny?
I feel like it doesn't fit better in any other existing category, and I do feel like it's important metric.
Okay.
So I don't know that we would wanna create another topic for it, and I don't know that we would wanna strike it out. So it may not be the most, same or
Right.
similar to the rest, but I think that's its most logical home.
And maybe because of the fact that it says community planning too, it's not just the strategic planning, but it's also community planning, and those reference the community, so I guess.
You could maybe, you have some lengthy topics there. You only have 4 words for number 7. So if you wanted to put a parentheses and, and collection management or something.
And programming too, it's
Yes,
programming and collection, it's
So
both,
feel free
programming and
to-
collection.
Can the collection be put under the community and public relations?
Well, so, and that's, where is that?
Number 4.
Number 4,
Because I was just thinking, just from my point of view, like, I can't even do number 7 because I wasn't here for the strategic plan.
right,
So I wouldn't be able to rate anything except for that bottom one. So I
okay,
feel like if it's the changes in the community, shouldn't that go under the community and public relations? Because it also says supports an effective press and social media presence, which that's kind of also adds to the collection of it going towards the community. That's just my little marker.
that's a good point.
I don't know.
Thoughts, Marjorie?
I like the idea of the collection under community and public relations.
Okay. Jenny?
I won't fight it.
Which is a no.
I don't prefer it there.
No,
Okay,
Okay,
So-
can I understand why, I guess? Because I'm new to
I
this.
can try to articulate it.
So-
It's a personal opinion. It's not a more
Well, no, I
senior
haven't-
opinion.
I
just
haven't
happen
done
to be more
this,
senior. That's
so-
all it is. No, it's more like, to me, I'm thinking about the, for lack of a better term, vibe I get from each topic. And the vibe I get from the community outreach topic is outreach, including social media as a tool. So it's what's coming out, not what's being brought in.
Okay.
And so what's in the planning is what's, to me, it's more about what are we creating current and future. So, you know,
Okay.
that's,
so
I see
I'm
that.
going to ask the director to share something that she just came up with as far
Yeah, no, I
as
see.
a title goes for number 7, and then see what you guys think.
So on number 7, it's strategic and community planning. And that struck me as community planning. I read it as community planning, and that's not really,
You're doing
you know.
that.
So I chopped it to strategic planning and community responsiveness,
Yeah,
or another word,
Right.
responsiveness.
right.
What do we think of that? And then they are okay to be in 7. Does that make sense? Sarah, does that make sense to go there then?
I won't fight it.
Jenny, she's taking things from your toolbox.
I
good.
can see it actually, like, in both places, so I can see it
Okay.
with it being there, and also with the change in title,
Yeah,
that,
I think
yeah,
that
that's
helps.
different,
Mhm.
yeah.
that helps.
Awesome, okay. Number 8 is completely blank, technology and
Don't like
innovation.
Terrible.
Because I don't know what to put in there, but that's one of our strategic planning, or strategic plan things. And
Yes.
so it seemed like it was important, but I didn't know what to put in there. So I didn't know if anyone had thoughts about what to put in that category,
Well, it's in,
or not have it.
it's in the director's self-evaluation. On the old packet, last meeting.
Yeah.
Page 3, no, never mind, these don't match up. So the one that's Xed out, so
Yep.
if you look, here is technology and innovation.
Yep,
So I don't
Those
know,
bullet
so
points.
does that mean we have to have it, or does that mean,
That's the strategic plan points, yeah.
yeah, so those are the points of the
Okay,
strategic
okay.
plan. So, let's go back to 8 in this, and let me just show you this real quick before we continue with that, because of, bringing up the director's staff evaluation. If you, go to, part 3, so there's no page number, sorry, but it says part 3 at the top of the page. And it says report on accomplishments, achievements, or changes from previous year, and then in italics, I put include director's monthly snapshot from previous evaluations. So that's where I was hoping that the snapshot that the director has created would go. But I didn't, I didn't think about the strategic plan part. Like, I was thinking just the monthly snapshot page, like that one page thing. And I wasn't thinking about what she's done in the past as far as the self-evaluation goes, under all of those. and if that's something we wanted to keep, or if that's something that we would pull things from there to put into this that we're rating her on separately. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, do we wanna pull specific things out to look at and rate her on, like we have with some of the other topics?
May I ask a question
Yeah.
that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about?
Absolutely.
Can we open a window? I am freezing.
I'm cold too.
My word, it's blowing, right? I'm sorry.
Good, I'm glad you said that because my feet
I wish I had a
are cold.
layered
I wasn't sure.
I am shaking,
You must be right on
and
this
I was
something.
going to wear a short sleeve. Last meeting we had in here, we had such a pleasant breeze.
But you know what, I sat there last meeting and I was freezing there
Oh.
too.
It's the spot.
It's that spot.
Don't, if it won't open, don't worry. I just thought I would ask, and I'm
If it
sorry.
won't break any laws, we can shift our chairs a little
I'm
bit.
sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Oh
I don't
my
need to be
God,
on camera, do I?
cold.
I know, right? I'll just.
So warm out
There.
It's warmer out there than it is in here. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Next
Open
time,
house. All
I
right.
bring a blanket.
2 weeks, we'll be back. Okay. So back to
Part 3.
this topic then.
Mhm.
So I was thinking, again, just the snapshot there, and I guess these comments things should go away. I don't know. And the thing is that because the director's self-evaluation is a personnel record, everything's been redacted. So we can't even like look at, you know, in this forum, like we can't look at what she's written in the past and say, oh, that's good, let me make that into a bullet point to rate her on in the future. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure what we're thinking. Or maybe I can, talk with the director about seeing what she has put in the previous ones, and then maybe I can come up with some bullet points that would kind of fit those general things to include in it. I don't know. Yes, what are you thinking, director?
It's odd for me to comment because this is my evaluation.
I know, but,
But you've mentioned organizational culture and growth, which organizational culture is already part of our strategic plan.
Right.
One of our facets of the plan, so that's been in here.
right,
And technology and facility are part of the strategic plan.
but we don't have a facility one, so that's,
Yeah.
I know, it's number 9, and I only have one thing in there.
Right, and so my suggestion would be to combine facility and technology and innovation, because the other two are organizational culture and advocacy awareness, and we've already touched upon those. So if
Okay.
you combine facility and technology, because technology is within the facility.
When you think about like RFID and like things like that, or like implementing new technology type stuff, or are we thinking more general terms? Sarah, Jenny,
It's up to
who
you.
am I looking at? Jenny?
I didn't have a better solution than what the director just proposed, but in agreement with that proposal is that it does belong here, and that's because I think we agree that the strategic plan is so central to how we should evaluate the director. It should be called out
Right.
clearly in this core competencies section.
Okay,
Do they each need a separate one? Maybe not, so that because we're already, you know, at a point of struggle of coming up with the bullet points. So I don't see it being a problem combining the two. They aren't that disjointed. They're not perfect together, and I
Okay.
wouldn't say they're a perfect match, but they're good enough to combine. I would not like to see them disappear
okay.
from here, so.
So are you
however we
thinking
do it.
facility and technology ampersand innovation?
Sure. And so, Sarah,
I know, I was thinking, I was just trying to say, I was like, yeah, I don't know, because I was trying to think of to use the word innovative facility. No, that just doesn't sound good at all.
And because,
Yeah.
and as the director said, like, these are our topics from the strategic plan, which is, like, I know you were here when we wrote that.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't.
I'm good with the ampersand, you know,
The
like you said,
ampersand in there.
technology and innovation, so that it's showing that that is.
That's
yeah.
one thing, and the facility's another. Okay, so the only thing I have in there, the only bullet point though I have is building and grounds are kept up and needs repairs and maintenance are done on a timely basis.
Well, I didn't do any extra homework, but I think if we referred to the strategic plan, we would hopefully not have too much difficulty gleaming from that what core,
What we should do.
relevant year-over-year
Okay.
things should be considered.
And I'm not sure why when I was doing this, I didn't think to, you know, reference the
Because it was
strategic
already
plan.
hour 5 and you
Maybe,
were
that
really
might have been
tired.
it. That might have been it.
You were waiting for somebody else to pitch in? Yeah.
So oftentimes, for the question of technology, it's kind of phrased something like, you know, recognizes community needs and matches those needs, you know, uses technology to meet those needs, and then usually you sort of go the other way and say, recognizes technological innovations and realizes how to apply them back to library services.
Okay,
So it kind of goes both
Okay,
ways.
okay.
Applies technical innovations in what you just said.
okay,
I like that.
Okay,
that'll help. Okay, so I'll work on those then, committee. Okay, so then 8 and 9 will be combined, so there will be no, that will not be 9. So then professional growth and goals will be 9. If we keep it.
Spoiler alert. No.
I don't know.
No, I,
So thoughts on that one? Anything? No comment? Leave it and see what the whole board says?
I heard a sigh.
I'm
I
trying
heard a
not
sigh.
to dominate the conversation.
I don't.
Although my breathing skills.
Jenny, did you have a comment to make on that one?
I guess what I'm thinking is, and I didn't even mean to, foreshadow here, but I don't really feel any of these bullet points are so necessary that I would fight to keep them. If anything, I could see them relocating to
Okay.
other places. You know, the stays up to date on library trends and best practices and innovative services and processes can go right into new number 9.
The technology and innovation.
Or sorry, new number
Number
8. Yeah, new number 8. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because then there's the professional growth and expansion for conferences. Didn't we see that in another one? The cultural and growth provides opportunities for professional growth and expansion of knowledge.
So and that one was about for the employees, for staff, but then this is also then for director, so maybe there's a way that we can move it into 5.
Somehow.
You might,
Because I feel like,
or-
because this one was supposed to be more like just the director themselves, you know, just specific to the director as opposed to the director leading the library. Director?
Your director is also part of the organizational culture, so it can
That's
fit
true.
in there.
So do we think, so the first one and the second one can go over to number 5 and the middle one can go to 8?
I like that.
Yeah. And that will make me feel better because I was thinking that 10 was way too many. And so, I feel better if we can scale it back and not have there be too many. So I would appreciate that overall.
I don't feel bamboozled by how you led us into this topic.
Okay. So moving on. Part 2, report on goals from previous year. So in here I put, you know, fiscal year 2021, 2022. And that was just the example because of actually this is what it will be next year because next year would be, no, it would be next year. It would be 2022, 2023, when we actually would use this for the first time. But I was trying to like help it fit with where we are right now in the example, because the director's doing what we've done in the past for this year's. Okay, so in italics, I put this section should include board-directed and self-directed goals. Goals should be set at the beginning of the fiscal year and aligned with the strategic plan. Each goal should be rated using the following scale. So again, oh, nope, perception, get away, make an assessment. So I can fix those, because we want that to be uniform. This is really for me, my notes for when I'm editing this. Okay, and then here was my question here. As you see, I just made 4 of them. We would need to determine how many board-directed goals we think there should be. We need to determine how many self-directed goals we think the director should create and put it together as far as that goes. But there's nothing here because we hadn't had that discussion yet to determine, okay, what do we think is a reasonable number of board-directed goals? What do we think is a reasonable number of self-directed goals? But this is something then that we would, so after the previous year's evaluation is completed, right, then we would need to create new goals for the following fiscal year. And that's when we would put those in here. I'm sorry, this would be, let me step back. I don't know when we're doing, are we doing it in June, her evaluation, or are we doing it in July?
June.
June? Okay. So, we're doing it in June, this year in executive session. So after that is complete, then we would need to discuss the goals that the board has for the director, and the director would need to share her self-directed goals, and then they would be in here, and then we would evaluate it next year when we're going through this review process.
Well, wouldn't we relate it to whatever the director indicated was her self-directed goals, and which were 3 presently? I mean, how can we?
Exactly,
Okay.
so we already have that she's given us self-directed goals, right?
Right,
And we'll have
right.
talked about them. So she's already doing that, so then is the board, we talked in the past about having board-directed goals as well. So if there's something specific that the board wants her to work on, then some of these goals could be the director's goals for herself, and some of them could be goals that we have, the board has for her. Or do we not want to do that? I don't know. I mean, that's part of this
Right,
discussion we're
right,
having
right.
too. Do we want there to be board-directed goals? Or is it just this other stuff that we were talking about and how it relates to the strategic plan and all that kind of stuff, and just leave this to be self-directed goals? I don't know. I mean, that's part of the discussion that we need to have, is what we want this to look like. In the past, as Marjorie has said, we've had, the director has had her own self-directed goals that she reports on. Do we want to add in board ones as well? Do we want to leave it as it is? I don't know.
I think we want to have the option. I think we want to leave it saying self-directed and board-directed goals. There may be no board-directed goals. The board is not forced to come up with something if they don't have anything additional than what's already in the evaluation form and the self-directed goals. Like if the director comes up with every goal that we could want for her, that's enough, right? So I just think leaving that, we have talked enough times as a larger group about thinking that it makes sense to offer board-directed goals, that we would not want to take that off the table. We'd want to leave a placeholder for it.
So then,
we don't have to use it.
in my italics, instead of this section should include, it can say may include board-directed and self-directed goals.
Yes.
And then this is just kind of
Say
like,
this section
what Jen
should
said, a
include
place-
self-directed goals and may include board-directed goals.
Okay, so should include self and may include. And then these are really just placeholders.
Mm-hmm.
is really what this is. This is just placeholders. Again, I don't know if we need the comments then, if it's just the goal and the rating.
Right.
And I can just make it goal and rating, we can get rid of the comments if we don't want that.
But what I am curious about is procedurally, when we get to the end of next year, like, how do we make sure that we already have, when do the self-directed and board-directed goals get created? Is that happening in our executive session this year for the next year?
Yeah.
And where, does that get documented anywhere in this document or elsewhere, is my question.
So the way I'm envisioning it is that at some point after we've gone through the director's evaluation for this fiscal year that we're just ending, right? When we go through that, at the conclusion of that, at some point in the not so distant future after that, I don't know if it's supposed to be at the same time or if we do it in another executive session at the next board meeting, I don't know. But then that's when the director would share with us her self-directed goals for that next year, and then that would go into this document immediately, like we would have it down, so that we know what she's working on for that year, and her own self-directed goals, and then we can determine if we wanna create board-directed goals as well. Does that make sense? So that it happens at the beginning, or as close to the beginning of the fiscal year as possible, so that there's then that year, or 10 months or 11 months or whatever it is, because next year we'll need to do it in May
We'll have
before
to
a new
do it.
board
I
is
was just
seated.
thinking, yeah. And we could have a new board, or new board members.
Mhm.
It has to be done.
It has to be done in
before
May before
before
the new board is seated.
Mhm.
I mean, it could be same board members, but it's still a new board, so it has to be done
Right.
before then, yeah.
Well, because we're developing this now, I think next year, we can start earlier, the process is set then. This is also brand new. I
Yep.
mean,
Yep.
you know,
And I feel like because it's brand new and we're kind of working our way through it, like, we're gonna be, I can't think of some, Jenny usually has some really good
Yeah.
colorful language to share about how to do things and some good idioms and stuff, and I can't come up with anyone right now. Can you think of something? But like my idea, but what I'm thinking about is
Blown
just,
away by the compliment, I'm speechless.
we're gonna, we're gonna be, we're just trying it out. Like, this is not gonna be perfect. We don't even know how this is gonna work and if it's gonna work well for us in this format. I mean, it's gonna be our trial and error year. Sorry, that doesn't really help you, Director Weinstein, as far as but it is, we're gonna see what works and what doesn't work, and we may have to tweak it and adjust it, and so we're trying to get things set as like a general timeline as much as we can, but it's gonna have to be fluid because we don't know. We've never done this before, it's never been a set document, it's never been a set procedure, it's new. But I feel like you would have had some very nice language to describe that.
No, I think you're exactly right when you're saying that this year is a transition year, and therefore we are going to kind of take a throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks approach. How's that idiom for you?
There you go.
You know, came right out of
See?
you knew it was there. Thanks for believing in me.
Uh-huh.
But the way my mind works, the more that we can do so that when we get into this year's executive session, as clunky as it might be being a transition year, to set ourselves up for success for next year, my thinking is we're already talking about the director's performance over the past year. To me, we're already in the frame of mind to be thinking about goals for the next year. Could we have a completely separate conversation? Could we get so bogged down in the current year that we really would like to have a separate conversation at a separate date? Yes. But ideally, would it be better to kind of combine the two? I think so. I mean, in a corporate environment, it can be done different ways. You don't always necessarily have the conversation, you do your self-evaluation, your bosses give you their evaluation, and you talk about goals for next year. That could all happen in the same conversation, or sometimes the goals are due later because that corporate environment
Right.
doesn't have all their stuff together, whatever. I just feel like, to your point about you know, we want to get those goals set as close to the beginning of the fiscal year as possible. We're already in June, we're having the evaluation done in June, all those things to me lead to, it would be helpful if we could have next year's goals as part of the conversation in that same meeting.
So here's the thing, is that that meeting is 2 weeks from yesterday, right? So I don't know if that'll fit into the timeline that's already been prescribed for that meeting. Like, I just don't know if that will work then, especially because of the fact that we haven't even gotten this approved by the whole board.
Right.
And we've discussed it yet. And so I almost feel like, yes, ideally, and maybe in the future, that's what will happen. But with this year, I feel like we maybe need to leave a little bit more time for the full board to have the discussions, to agree on things before we do that. That's my concern right now, is that we're not there yet with this in order to say, we need to do this 2 weeks from yesterday.
You can also have a July beginning of the fiscal executive session to
Special
follow up
meeting.
Okay.
on goals.
There's no policy about when the evaluation had, that's not.
So,
I mean, I understand it geared to the budget, correct? I mean,
It's the budget, and it's the start of the fiscal year,
but
so-
is there, I'm just asking for my
So,
information.
one of the things that schools do, if you want to use that, the board rehires the superintendent or the principals, and the principals rehire the staff. So in a sense, the library sort of operates the same way with their, in both cases, it's tied to the budget that you have. So by going through the evaluation process, you are saying that the director should continue in their role, and yes, we're empowering the director to continue with library operations through that staff.
so do you have to wait to evaluate staff until we evaluate you?
No.
Like, does that put you on hold as far as that goes?
No, but
Okay.
we traditionally do
Do
it in concert,
Okay,
yes.
okay. And the thing is too, again, because we're in this transition time with this, we're behind already. I mean, we're starting behind. Like next year, because we talked about with seating a new board, we'll need to do this in May. So it'll be finished earlier, right? And there was a meeting, and I'm not sure when now, with this committee that we talked about trying to figure out a timeline, and we talked about like the May, June, and we talked about that kind of stuff, and then that was like 2 boards ago maybe, I don't know. But that's something that we talked about, like a procedure, as far as like timeline procedure, as far as that goes, that we haven't done yet. But are we okay then, when you said a special meeting, were you saying a special meeting, an additional meeting in July, or just our July meeting?
July meeting,
And having an executive session then?
that's a possibility.
Okay, so that's something then that we could do, so that in our June meeting, if we agree to put this forward to the whole board at the June meeting and we discuss this as just part of the regular open meeting, and then we have our executive session to talk about the current fiscal year that's, just ending, that evaluation, and then in July, then we could have another executive session and then discuss these goals. I don't know, Marjorie?
And goals could be talked about in open
Oh, an
session.
open session?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not an assessment.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that sounds,
I know, it just feels like we're playing catch-up, right?
Right.
Like now we're like running to
and
catch up.
it's a one-time thing,
Right.
hopefully. For the next go-round, I mean, there isn't any reason, I believe, that we couldn't start preliminarily in April
Mhm.
to get the forms out
Right.
and get people thinking about it. No decisions,
Right,
and then you have a May meeting, and then you're ready to rock and roll in June, or the end of June even. I mean, but that's there.
right,
Right now we're worried about.
yeah,
But I think that timeline.
okay, okay. I'm just thinking of you because as the board president as far as other things that have
Well,
to.
no, Tatiana knows it.
Remember what I said to you earlier,
Okay,
our fearless leader.
yeah, right.
Okay. Okay, so so for this section, again, these are placeholders, but if I make it goal and then rating and I get rid of the comments, so then it won't be 2 lines, it'll just be 1 line with a table of, split into 2 cells. Okay. Okay, and then part 3, we talked about this already, report on we can get rid of the comments. Report on accomplishments, achievements, or changes from previous year, and this is where I wanted the director's monthly snapshot from previous evaluations. And then, so that goal stuff that we just talked about it, so for the previous years is gonna be on the previous page, right? And then this is goals for upcoming year then, so this is then, I was, again, get rid of the comments, but this is where I was thinking, and really there shouldn't be ratings in there anyway, there should just be goals, right?
Right.
You can tell I copied and pasted when I got to that point of creating this document. I was like, copy paste, copy paste. So then this could be part of the discussion then as well. Then during that executive session, we could just discuss that too. I feel like the director's thinking something. Are you thinking something?
I don't know. Well, as Beth mentioned, you can talk about goals, board goals for the director in open session.
So if we have board goals, we can talk about them in open session,
Yeah.
but if it's your
If-
self-directed goals,
If it's
then-
mine, because mine could be, maybe it's like personal improvement goals,
Okay,
that wouldn't be said in open session.
okay.
But board goals can be, yeah.
So we can talk about board goals can be discussed in open session,
Sure.
but don't have to be,
No,
right?
well,
Or do they have to be?
if they're paired with an assessment, you can have them in executive session.
So like if we were in executive session and we were going through this with you,
That's
Then-
executive session.
then it can just be part of that conversation.
Yes,
But if we're talking about it independently of that,
that
then
should
it
be
should be
actually
in
an
open
open
session.
session, yes.
Okay,
Because the executive session is strictly for assessment purposes.
okay. Okay. So that's for the future then. So this would be, for the 2023, 2024, if we're thinking about next year. Okay. And then part 5, this really just kind of got thrown in there because some of these were suggestions or questions that Jenny had, and I wasn't really sure where to put them, and so I threw them here so that we would discuss them. So where it says additional assessments, so is there a place that we think we could put consideration of extraordinary challenges, like COVID, the renovation, things like that? If there's areas to engage board support, professional development opportunities, those are some things that Jenny had said. The 4 ... was for when we're with the full board, if they have comments or suggestions for this as well. So I don't know if there's a place that you think these things should go, if they would get caught in some other area that we've already discussed in this document. The professional development opportunities, I feel like it's in one of those earlier sections, the core job competencies. So I don't know if we need to have it in a separate place. What do you think, Jenny? Since these were your suggestions, is there a place that you think that they should go, or do you think we've covered them, or?
I didn't have good homes for them. I tried to just say, as part of the overall conversation with the director, and as part of our previous actual conversations, we've thought
Right.
about extraordinary matters. So number 1, 2, and 3, they're not all in a same category
Right.
themselves, but it's
Right.
just like, here's other considerations that do belong in the conversation. And number 1 definitely hit upon, well, what happens when there's something extraordinary that wasn't part of goals, that it wasn't part of the usual assessment,
Right.
that may go into consideration for level of difficulty, possible potential bonus, et cetera, that sort of thing. And so I feel like it would be good that it still has a place to be refreshed in the conversation. The other 2 things, areas to engage board support and professional development opportunities, were more along the lines of the board asking itself the question as the quote-unquote supervisor, what can I do to help you more? What can I do, you know, as a board to support you, director? Like, I feel like that still belongs in the conversation annually. You know, we don't really talk about that in open session. Hey, dear director, you know,
Right.
but what have we done for you lately to help you develop and grow? Or to support the needs of the library, that sort of thing. So 2 and 3 are closer together in my mind, but it's still, it's hearkening to a more general, not library specific supervisor and you know, employee type relationship where you're saying, now we're having this conversation, how can I support you? That's what I'm envisioning here. If it doesn't belong here or anywhere, that's what we're here to discuss, but that was the tone
Okay.
of those items.
I thought we agreed, or at least we discussed, under library director self-evaluation, part 6, to add 2 bullet points, and that was.
Yeah, and I know I missed,
No, but that's something that Jenny was just talking about. What suggestions do you have for changes you could make to improve your job and/or job performance? And then the other one was, what suggestions do you have for the Board of Trustees to better support you or improve your job and/or job performance? I don't know.
right, so those were at our last meeting.
Right.
And I had pulled, like, because we had 2 different ones that had questions or self-evaluation
Right.
questions. And so there were ones that were similar, but so I wasn't sure what wording we liked better.
Sure.
So, but like, like number 3 is kind of like that last bullet point that you said, it's just not as wordy, and it doesn't mention the board. And I think it, you know, mentioning the board I think is helpful, because it's saying what areas do you require additional support, it could be like anything, and if we want it to be specific to how can we, the board, help you, then I think it's important to put that in there.
Would part 5, number 2, is that similar to what we're talking about as far as the 2 extra points? You know, it's
I
areas to engage board support, so it's almost the same question.
And
I
really,
don't
this
know.
part 5 was really just because I wasn't sure what to do with these extra questions that Jenny had.
Okay,
And so I just
sure.
threw them in there as like we need to discuss this, but I don't really know where it fits. And so, you
Well,
know.
maybe at the very end, I mean, could you just include a section where we have, you know, unanticipated challenges, or, you know, if it applies, COVID did,
Right,
hopefully we'll never have, but anything that's unexpected or just on an emergency basis that we had to deal with,
so like, yeah.
rather than have a
And it just be a,
general statement that, you know, these things happened.
and like, yeah, so just like did anything
and
happen?
to think
Basically,
about
did
it.
anything
Yeah.
extraordinary happen this year?
Right.
So a separate part that's other considerations, and then a
And
little
it maybe
blurb
it's not
about.
even rated, I'm sorry.
Right, I agree,
It's not
I
even
agree.
rated,
No,
No,
it's
no,
not, it's just
mentioned.
it's a placeholder to say, was there anything else here that should be part of the consideration?
So would you want that to be this like part 5, or do you want it to be, like, do you want it to be before library director self-evaluation questions, or do you want it to be after?
Well, I wonder if you would do it before the overall performance rating,
Right,
because it's
before that.
something you would take into consideration.
Okay,
You don't rate it, how do you rate, well, I
Yep, no,
suppose
you
you can't rate the COVID,
right,
um,
so that could just
that's
be,
just my suggestion.
it could just be, so the library director self-evaluation, those questions could be part 5, and then a part 6 could be other considerations. And then we can just
Right, just state it. I
just
mean,
put in there like pandemic, I don't know, but you know what I mean, like that, and just kind of leave it blank. And then if it's, or like if applicable, or whatever,
Mhm.
and then that could get filled in,
Yes.
okay?
And we'll get ideas from the rest of the board members. I mean,
Right. I'm gonna write these notes to myself to add in those other, questions from page 61 in the previous packet. Okay,
And then I think 2 and 3, you know, can be incorporated into part 5, the new part 5 of the self-evaluation.
Okay. So I'll
I think
draw an arrow down there to put those in there. Okay. Sarah, did you have anything to add with that part?
No, because I was thinking one should go to policy and general information, and then it was like, no, it can't, because
Yeah.
you can't rate it.
Right.
So, yeah, so I mean, I'm just listening to everything, and
Okay.
it's like answering, my own questions in my head. But yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, so then, part 7. It's
Now
still 7.
6.
No, it's still 7, isn't
Oh,
it?
it
Because
is?
part 6 is the other considerations.
Right.
So part 7 still, so the overall performance rating, and then that would just be a circle of whatever it is, right? And then I added in the directors, the signature, the printed name, the date, because we talked about how we don't have any of that on any of our forms before. And then I added that additional thing about the signature indicates neither agreement nor disagreement, just that it's been completed. Now, here's a question, do we have a set document where we set the director's salary that gets, like, should that be part of this? Should this be in here at all, or is that completely separate and it doesn't need to be in this form? I have no idea.
So my suggestion would be to have a final document that has the overall performance rating on it,
Okay,
with signatures, with the compiled score, and salary.
okay.
And that would be its own document.
So not as part of this.
Because these are separate per each trustee.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So then this, so then
You may want to
these
have.
questions then, these lever self-evaluation questions, then are you envisioning that as the director, it's something that we would talk about in an executive session and we would just ask you and we would ask you to speak to those? Or are you envisioning this as something that you would write and submit to us in advance as we're going through it?
That's up to you. Any director would like to know about them in advance, but you can spring them on. You can spring any
Well,
question
no,
on any director.
the only reason why I'm asking, because I'm thinking about like, this might help in our, when we do our part, which is completing the document and bringing it then to the executive session, it might help us to have your answers to these questions beforehand. So,
You can have this as a separate document as board questions to the director to be submitted with myself.
your snapshot and stuff that we're gonna
Snapshot,
include
yeah.
in there.
Right, but I have some notes here just
Okay.
to say that you should have a final document with your compiled score and the salary recommendation
Okay,
as its own document.
okay,
And then I would suggest that each of these forms have an area for the trustee's signature and trustee printed name and date. So
Ah.
when they're submitted to
so that we
whomever.
know who they are, okay.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Look at this work we're giving ourselves to do. Okay. Any other things that we're thinking about, Jenny?
Page 1,
Yep,
one word, under library board relations. Enthusiastically. I don't think
Where are you at?
Oh,
she's back
Fourth
at the
bullet
beginning.
point,
Okay.
it's spelled perfectly, but I don't feel comfortable rating the director on her enthusiasm for board's decisions.
Okay.
I think respectfully endorses is more fair.
Okay,
She doesn't have to be enthusiastic about it, especially if she disagrees with it, and
Yep.
she's entitled to disagree with it.
yep,
Or he,
okay.
or they.
Very nice, it's Pride Month, and thank you for that. Okay, so we're switching enthusiastically in that part 1, the 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet point down to respectfully. Okay, other things?
Are you
So-
not gonna fight me on that one? Oh, no. Hands down, you win.
Marjorie, you look like you had something.
No, I was just gonna ask Tatiana if we don't like the color she picks out, then she will respectfully agree with us. Rather than say, I'm enthusiastic about it. Okay,
Okay, so, Sarah, you look like you have something.
No,
No?
it's been eye-opening. I hear a lot. I've learned a lot. Lots of colorful words.
Okay, so
And
here's,
it is,
so here's
but
my
it
question
seems-
for this lovely committee.
Ooh.
So if I go through and I edit this based on the discussion that we had this evening to the best of my ability, are we comfortable then sending this draft that I'm gonna edit to the full board at our meeting, which is 2 weeks from yesterday, to discuss?
can we get it to them before?
Well,
Will
that's
that be
my
in the
hope.
packet?
It would be in the
That'll
packet,
Okay,
it
all
would be in
right,
the packet.
yes,
I would say yes.
yes.
Jenny?
Sooner the better.
Okay, so then just so that I'm clear, because I'm assuming that since I, am the chair of this committee, I'm gonna have to lead that discussion. So,
You can lead it, but you could probably delegate as the leader.
so, Jenny's gonna lead the
Jenny.
discussion
Yeah,
then.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so then, is there anything, so I just, this is what I wanna say. I will create the draft, I'll get it together to the best of my ability, it'll be ready, it'll go out in the packet for that meeting, we'll discuss it. I will lead that discussion just because of the fact that I've been working with this and
Absolutely.
chairing this committee. However, I am going to rely on each of you to share some thoughts as well, especially if some of the rest of the board has questions or concerns. I'm gonna lean on you to share what you think, what you feel, how we arrived at the decisions, and the discussion and things like that. Okay, so can you just mentally prepare yourselves to just be able to say something so that I'm not, just doing it myself and I don't have that support of the committee?
My idioms will be ready for you.
Awesome. Okay, that's what I'm hoping for. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, any additional things that you wanted to add?
One more suggestion.
Yep.
And this is specifically for you.
Okay,
Is, because the other board members will be seeing this draft in the packet first thing, it'll be fresh.
right.
You may wanna create a cover page with procedures.
Ooh.
Just like a bullet pointed procedure that, board members will receive this form, board members will individually fill it out, it will go to,
So more than what I had at the top, this form instructions thing?
I think having a cover page that goes over that, but then also that the director will submit.
Because there is that separate
that's right, so we
document.
added that,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Just something a little-
Okay,
just a quickie cover page is nice
okay,
for those not familiar.
okay,
And then obviously it'll be expanded upon at the meeting.
right. Et cetera, okay, okay. Anything else? Okay, then, the last item on the agenda is to adjourn, so if anyone would like to make a motion in a second.
I messed up the first time.
You get to go. Well, I want you to have it because I don't want to fight you.
I'll second.
Did anyone say it? No one even said it. I need a motion, please, someone give me a motion.
I thought she said, good.
Motion to approve.
I move to adjourn. Say-
Move to adjourn. I move to adjourn.
All right,
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Dang
motion,
it.
Sorry, meeting adjourned.
I can't rub off on you.
Yeah.
7:05.